Welcome to General Admission. Today is March 28th, episode 52. I'm going to start saying episode numbers because that seems fun. We have a really awesome interview this episode. Jarrett Dougherty, he's the drummer for Screaming Females. Shout out New Jersey. They're so good. Very, very,
Awesome.
very, very good music there. So yeah, stay tuned for that interview. We also have some new albums. There was new Fall Out Boy, new August Burns Red, and new Bouncing Souls. Uh couple singles. Linkin Park released another one, which we could talk about later.
Whoops, I think I missed that one.
Yeah.
I would have gladly listened to it, but I didn't know it came out.
Yeah, they snuck it out the other day. We'll talk about it later, so you could listen real quick when we take a break. Um it sounds a lot like another one off that album, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Um
It is from those sessions, though, right? The Meteora sessions.
yeah,
Sessions. There we go.
yeah. I wonder how many they have. You could tell this one. Now we're just talking about it. We'll wait. We'll wait till you can listen. But yeah, lots of fun stuff this week. I went to a show. I went to see Microwave in Brooklyn, and it was awesome. And it reminded me how much I miss just being in a crowd in a small room, screaming to music. It's so nice. It's so
Was
cathartic.
was it just a microwave like counting down to zero? There's like a beep at the end, and everyone went nuts
Yeah,
when the
yeah.
food was ready.
We all left with radiation poisoning. And all our soup was lukewarm. The middle was hot. No, the whole
Your
set was
videos
the
are
whole set was
so
good.
cool, though. I was watching them on the gram.
Yeah, it's so hard not to like film the whole time, which I didn't. I got two 30-second clips and I called it at that. But yeah, especially with the podcast, because like I want to share this stuff because I love it and I think our listeners love it. So it's fun to watch, but I'm not gonna film a whole show. Sorry, not sorry.
They passed the live test, right? At least that's my assumption based on those clips.
Yeah, yeah, big time. The energy was so there. The crowd was super into it, like moshing, jumping around, very, very chaotic, but like, controlled chaos. It
You
was,
sneak a peek at their set list if it's up.
yeah, it was, they played a lot. They played like everything I'd want to hear, like Lighterless, Vomit is a good one. Their last like four were really strong. There's still like I've only really been listening to them. Like you can literally like fact check it on this podcast because we have an episode called Microwave is Awesome. And that was when I found them and said I would see them as soon as they come around. And I think that was like 6 or 7 months ago. But the show was great. Getting to Brooklyn wasn't too bad. I wound up driving to Hoboken, met up with Andy. We took the path in. This was like one subway transfer.
The
Really
easy way to
wasn't
go.
bad. Like less than 20 minutes to get from Hoboken to Brooklyn. Got some
That's not bad at
tacos from a
all.
food truck. Yeah, not not at all. I did get stuck in a parking garage, which was kind of
In
kind of
Hoboken,
yeah.
as you say.
Yeah. I I parked and I left the building and the door closed behind me and the door would not reopen. So that was like first like worrisome sign. And I'm down like on street level, but in a fence, like a cage. I'm in a cage. Shout out Smashing Pumpkins.
Despite all
I'm
your
a,
rage.
yes, exactly. And the gate won't open. It looked like it was like screwed in. So I'm like, maybe this was an old entrance or exit, whatever. So there's stairs, like outside stairs. I go up them and it takes me to like one of those rooftop areas that like apartment complexes have with like some grills and like lawn chairs and stuff. Except it wasn't the roof. It was just like midway. Um couldn't get in the building because I didn't have a key card, so I had to go back down the stairs to the cage, but can't get back in the garage either. Can't get out the fence.
Was it not a public garage?
No, it definitely was a public garage. I used an app to have cheaper parking, which was pretty nice because usually it's annoying to pay in Hoboken.
Yeah.
So finally a woman comes and she's like, "Are you trying to get out?" I say yes, and she goes, "Oh, there's a button here." And there was a button next to the door, but not the exit door, next to the door of the garage that said exit. But this was a sketchy button. Like the letters were faded. It looked like it was kind of popped off. Like it didn't look like a button I should have hit, but it did say
The
exit. It
the
did say
Staples
exit.
that was easy button.
Yeah. It wasn't it was not easy.
Just the
it was
opposite of that.
the 77 Park Garage. This is the hard button, and you will be trapped in this cage forever button. So that's what I was a little worried about, but I made it out. It was okay. And yeah, we got to the show. The first band was called like Moth. The dude kind of looked like Billy from Stranger Things. We kind of watched them. So they have TVs in the basement of the bar at Music Hall of Williamsburg. So we chilled down there. Like,
That's a cool bar down there.
yeah,
I've been.
it's great. I love that they have the TVs there because then you can still like enjoy it, but if it's a band you're not interested in, you can chill.
And there's like
Um,
tables still down there, right?
yeah,
Like picnic tables.
yep. Um, we went up for this band called Delta Sleep, who's from like England or something, somewhere over there. Really good, like really good math rock. So tight. Their drummer was like super ferocious. Like I thought he was gonna break the drum kit, but like hunched over it, just smashing away. And really tight, noodly, like math rock, yelling guitar, like almost like Tiny Moving Parts type music, but um almost felt more noodly.
They're called Delta Sleep.
Delta Sleep, yeah, definitely check them out. The
They related
song,
to Alpha Awake.
yeah, that's their sister band. They have a song. I really want to shout it out because it was a great song, and I can't think of the name, so I'm just rambling. Here we go. Here we go. Uh, Dustbusters off their first album. Real good. Check that one out if you're gonna just throw one on. Um, yeah, they were great, and the crowd like knew all the songs. It's my favorite thing when you're seeing like an opening band or like a band that's like coming up, and they're halfway around the world, whatever, and the crowd is moshing, singing like every word, and the lead singer just gets this smirk on his face, and he starts like kind of laughing almost because it's just I think I don't know exactly what he's thinking, but to me it seems like just that level of disbelief, like holy shit, like we started in England, we're here in Brooklyn, and these kids are like singing our songs, and it's just such a
Gotta be
cool.
a wild feeling.
I can't even imagine, but like it's amazing to see the realization hit these guys because I've seen it with other artists too, and it's so like wholesome. I just love it. They were great. Then we went back downstairs for Oso Oso because I just can't get into them. I've tried so many times. They have a couple good songs. They're definitely not like bad or anything like that, but they just I don't know, just not like my cup of tea. So
Did
we
he
chose
sound better than Starland or the same?
uh I can't really tell you because
Okay.
we were down in the bar. I know like their top three songs, like if you want, we could just lay here. Da, da, da. I don't know. That one's good, whatever that one is. I think it has backslashes in the song title name. But yeah, so we chilled down there, went back up for microwave, and we get up there for microwave, and the crowd's filling in. It wasn't, I mean, it was sold out, but it didn't feel like claustrophobic or anything like that. And there's these two dudes in front of us, and they are yapping away, like full blown conversation as the band comes on. One song, two songs, three songs. They are just talking through every song right in our face. Like he then played an acoustic song, like Straw Hat, that one of their new ones, starts acoustic, and they're like shouting over him. And now it's like 4 songs. And I look at them, I'm like, shut up. Like nothing. Like I projected, but not as much as I should have, because like I'm not like super confrontational, but like at what point do you try and say something? So then Andy Andy leans in and he goes, shut up, shut the fuck up, shut up. And they and and they turn around and they're like, dude, what? Everyone's talking. And he's like, you're literally the only ones talking. And then they look at me like thinking that I'm gonna like back them up. And I'm like, just go to the fucking bar if you want to talk. Like, stop talking over the band.
Seriously.
Yeah.
What are you there
And
for if you're gonna talk the whole time?
I honestly would have liked to have asked them that. Like, why are you here if you're clearly not listening? Like, I don't get it. You can go downstairs to the bar, you can chit chat, you can listen. Like, that's fine. I'm not like trying to police how you enjoy a show, but shut up. Don't talk over the band. It's crazy. And it's one thing if it's like one song and it's kind of annoying, but this was 4 songs straight, just shouting over the
Yeah, that's
band.
really
So,
bad. And it's a club
so
show too, so it's not like you can hide that you're having a conversation.
yeah. And like we couldn't really like move to get like away from them. So, I mean, I guess we could have, but it was easier to just tell them to shut the fuck up.
I love
And
Andy.
yeah, yeah, I was so proud in that moment. I like to think my half-hearted shut up encouraged him to really lay into them because
You open
I
the door,
mean,
he kicked it down.
yeah, I've been watching enough Sopranos. I'm ready to just brawl with anyone now. Violence is the answer.
The Polly Walnuts.
No, but so they like stayed another like 2 songs and they like kind of kept talking, not nearly to the level, but you could tell that like they wanted to keep talking, and then they just left. Maybe they listened and went downstairs to the bar, but what a rush.
That's unbelievable. I've never heard of that at a show. Usually, like no one talks during. I get like talking during openers, but no one talks during the band. Everyone's there to see.
Yeah, especially those like little shows. But sometimes I wonder what if Brooklyn's like a high like profile area where there's people who might just have nothing to do and like let's go check out this like $30 show or whatever.
Hipsters.
You said
I
it. Yeah,
mean,
no,
that is Williamsburg, so
yeah, so I don't know. I just yeah, I don't know why you would just talk over the main act.
just go to a brewery to hang out
Yeah.
if you're not interested in the band.
Yeah.
A lot of breweries in Brooklyn, so
Hmm. Like Brooklyn Brewery.
exactly.
Boom. There's one. The band was great though. They played they played like everything I wanted to hear. Their bass player screams too, which I didn't know, which I thought was cool. Uh, Lead singer screams. I was listening to an interview with him. I've been doing this thing where I've been doing it for when we have to interview bands and I want to like research. I just type a band in or like their lead guy's name into Spotify and then just search it under podcasts. So I did that for Microwave and I listened to an interview on a podcast called Washed Up Emo. Just great, great podcast.
That's a great podcast. He has a book out too, I think, from like all the interviews he's done.
Oh wow. Yeah, it was great. He seemed like a cool dude and the interview was awesome. He came up like in the Mormon church and the first couple albums are like kind of about leaving that, but he was saying how he didn't want to he wanted to leave himself some like plausible deniability because he put those albums out before he even told his parents that like he was leaving the church, like shit like that. I just thought it was interesting, like because that's a pretty like when you're in full blown like Mormonism, I think it's like your whole life. So to get out of
Utah.
that and then yeah, see, but they're from Atlanta, which that was where I got a little confused. I guess there's Mormons in Georgia too.
There's I feel like there's everything in
Or maybe
Georgia.
he just moved there after he left. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, but like having that knowledge where like he like grew up almost like, in the church and like sheltered, and now he's just like kicking ass in Brooklyn, like having a great time. Like the one clip I posted during the solo, there was like one part where he kind of flubbed just a little, and not like to knock him, but he just like as soon as that happened, you saw him just like grin ear to ear and just like laugh and just keep going. It's like they're just having fun, and that's just the best.
That's
It's
what you want
just
to see.
the best. Yeah.
Where they're not just cashing a check; they're having a good time and
Yeah.
giving the crowd a show.
Yeah. I didn't buy any merch. I resisted because I am trying to not spend all my money. But merch was cool. They did have one shirt that just had a picture of a microwave on it and nothing else.
I was gonna say you already own a microwave, so you're already supporting the band.
Very true. That was one of the questions in the Washed Up Emo interview. He's like, "So, how's SEO going for the band?" He's like, "What?"
That's got to be a challenge.
He's like, "Search your band name on Google and see what happens." It's
Got to
like,
put
"Oh,
microwave band.
it's just a bunch of microwaves." Uh, yeah, the one guitarist had on like this awesome like graffiti style Pearl Jam shirt, which I thought was cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Andy was saying he might be new, the one guitarist, but that's just based off how their one album cover looks. So they could just look different. We weren't sure, but it was a great show. It felt so good to like do that again. It's been a while since I've been to a small show like that, and I definitely miss it.
So I got a new guitarist in 2016.
Oh, way to go, Andy. Nailed it. Yeah.
Fact check that
So
for you real quick.
gonna go back to Brooklyn for Screaming Females Iron Chic. Andy's down, Goldie's down. So hopefully you're down too, Brett, and we can run it back.
If it's easy to do on a Friday, then I think I
Yeah,
might have to do it.
if you're able to come here like at lunch or something, work out the rest of the day remote from here, then we just zip over the Hoboken, take that 20-minute subway ride. It was way easier than I thought. So, I mean, you have an extra step in your travels, but it really wasn't bad. So,
I think it's doable.
yeah, make it happen. I
Got to
forgot
check
to
the almighty calendar.
yes, yes. Almighty calendar. Do you want to get to albums?
Let's do it. This was an
Sweet.
awesome week. I was not to spoil too much, but I was pretty happy with all three of these.
Yeah, me too. Um, you want to start with August Burns Red?
That's a good starting point.
All right. So for me, this band has always been a cool metal band that makes awesome Christmas songs.
They do
Um,
make awesome Christmas songs.
they do. I've never listened to an album by them in full before. Full
Ooh.
disclosure. But this one, Death Below, 12 songs, 53 minutes. What did you think of it, Brett? Because you listen to them more than I do. Is that safe to say?
I think that's fair. Although I've kind of fallen off them since like I think it was 2011's Leveler. Like I don't know if it's just because like I'm less angry than I was then, or like I was kind of texting you to spoil this a little bit, but I feel like you have to be like in the right environment to enjoy their music. Like you have to be like exercising, or if you have like a long drive home at night and are trying to stay awake, this is a good thing to put on. Obviously, like Christmas season, they have the Christmas album,
Yeah.
but like it's very heavy and like all of them are amazing musicians, but they do kind of fall into like their songs sounding the same at points. I feel like then
Yeah.
like that's kind of why I've drifted a little bit. Like I'd love to go back and kind of explore what I missed because I mean I still did listen to like each album when they came out like at least once, but I can't tell you any song from like the last one, two, three, four albums they put out before this one. But I know every single song still on Messengers and Constellations. Like those albums are amazing and have some like the greatest breakdowns outside of like A Day to Remember
Oh
that you'll
wow.
hear.
I gotta check that out. Did
Definitely
they
listen to those two.
did they ever sing?
That was going to be one of my points where I feel like I know August Burns Red fans, if they listen to this, are probably going to be angry that I say this, but I feel like they're a band that could have benefited from some clean vocals. And
I
they've kind of
I feel
teased a
that way
little
too.
bit, but it's not like clean enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's just personal preference. So I'm sure there's
Yeah.
bands that don't need it, but like for me, even if it was 70-30 screaming singing, I think it
Yep.
would work better because it would just kind of keep you on your toes a little bit more and it would make the singing feel that much better and the screams feel that much better. And that's just how I like heavy music. Like I'm all for screams. But I like even you take a band like Opeth, who's like black metal or whatever it is, they like growl their vocals, but they'll still have slow, clean singing parts. So it's something to almost like look forward to or just balance it out. And I would have loved that from August Burns Red, but I don't think they're a band that does that. So like that's fine.
Kind of got a small sneak peek of what it would be like with the Jesse Leach song "Ancestry" on this one, like where he had clean vocals on like the chorus,
Yeah.
and like it was a great song. So I was
Hmm.
like, I would kind of like more of this. And I think they've done a song with like Jeremy from A Day to Remember before, where he may have had clean vocals. I think, unless he just screamed. I can't remember what the song sounded like off the top of my
Yeah.
head, but
Yeah, they had a couple features. They had Spencer Chamberlain from Under Oath on this one.
also clean vocals, right? The parts. I
Uh,
think he screamed obviously, but like there was some like I think towards like the
Maybe.
middle, heading towards the end of the song. It was like an 8 minute song, so
Yeah. From a like totally instrumental standpoint, like this album is so awesome. These guys are amazing musicians, and I just love the bass tone on like all these songs. It's so punchy. It almost sounds like he's slapping it. Like I don't think he's slapping. I think he's just playing like slinky strings with a pick, but it just has that really like reverberating bouncy noise, and it sounds so good. And it's not something that like I would have really expected alongside like a metal band. Like I almost thought the bass would have been more just bassy and like driving, but to have like that punchy bass was really cool. Um,
he's
I
such a
think
big part of the band. Dustin Davidson, he's the bass player. Like he has like those like shrieking background screams. Like there's some
it's
like my
sick.
favorite like backing screams. Not that like that's a big category, but like his when it comes up on when it comes like through your speakers, you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, Dark Divide had great bass. Sevink, it was an interlude, but the bass came in and the tone's just so good. Um, the drums halfway through Backfire. I wrote that one down.
Matt
It,
Grenier, he's one of my favorite drummers. Because especially if you listen to like Messengers and Constellations, like it's just like he puts on a clinic on like every album with them.
it's
Like I've
great.
watched YouTube videos of him just playing just to watch what he does because like it's so incredible.
I definitely have to listen, especially as I promised last episode. I've been to the gym 4 times since then. What's good? Swoleville, population, me.
Population August Burns Red.
Yes. Well, we have to listen to so much music that I'm like, why don't I just drive 10 minutes to the gym and just like do some shit there? Pop
So I've been
some,
doing some listening. Especially
no,
like this one
no,
was perfect because I'm like I can't just
yeah,
sit in my living room with this
exactly.
and sitting still listening to this. So
Yeah. And I'll just like take notes in between sets. So like it's working out pretty
yeah,
nice. But this is definitely a good one for that.
yeah, I'll probably sit with this one for a little bit. I might even go back and listen to like some of the ones they put out more recently too, and see if I'm missing anything. But like I liked Revival. I think you mentioned right, or am I just making
Yeah,
that up?
yeah, Revival.
And then Fool's Gold, I really liked. Thought that was different.
Yeah. We had a few spoken word interludes this week across
We
albums.
did.
Did
One
it?
was well, we'll get to that soon, but
Yeah.
one was a movie clip.
I was gonna save it for that one, but I'll just ask you now. Did any of these interludes make you really want to listen to another album by another band
I don't think so.
that maybe we roadmapped before?
Silverstein.
Yeah. Just made me think of Great Fire. Like just the spoken word interludes,
Oh,
like the
that's
intro
right.
to that
Yeah.
album. Yeah.
I was like so
So
tied into like I was like, whoa, this is right out of reality, but it's just pretty cool.
yeah. They're
We'll get to that soon.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so what's the August Burns Red one I should listen to? Constellations?
Messengers first, then Constellations.
Okay. All right, cool.
Like Constellations has like Whitewashed, which is like one of their best songs, and Messengers like that entire album's amazing.
Nice. Yeah,
Back Burner, Composure,
I think I have
Against the
listened to
Ropes.
these before. I said I never listened to an album in full, but looking at the album covers, I think I have. I just don't necessarily know the songs, but yeah. It's not like I've been ignoring August Burns Red my whole life. I mean, Christmas time. It's a wonderful time.
Yeah, I think I've seen them a few times on Warped Tour back in the day,
Oh, that's great.
and saw them co. I think when I was like really into them, they co-headlined Starland with Bring Me the Horizon, which is a wild show.
That does sound wild. Wage War is going to be at Starland pretty soon.
They're headlining, right?
Yeah, that's like all there is there. I was talking to Lauren. She said they're like between events managers, like they hired a new one or something. So there was like kind of a lull. But I was looking at their events calendar for the summer. And there's nothing.
No,
No,
I
it's
mean I know
weird.
they usually have like a great fall lineup
Yeah,
versus like summer shows, but hopefully they like they're putting other energy into that right now.
yeah. All right, let's get to Bouncing Souls, New Jersey guys. 10 Stories High. I think this is like their 12th album, maybe.
I think I think you're right. Although, do you want me to do the math here?
I did
Not
the
the biggest math guy,
I
but
did the Wikipedia count. So that's like studio albums. There's
okay, we'll
probably
count it then.
probably way more. Because if you just list the albums on Spotify, you get so many between deluxe editions and re-recordings, and it's impossible to like go through a band you don't know inside and out and determine what's an album and what's not.
I think
So
12 is a safe bet.
yeah, it's all 10 stories high, but 12 albums deep. And this
That
was
should be the episode title.
boom, 25 minutes, which was nice. And it's just like we've talked about Bouncing Souls before. Like, listen to a few albums. They're a band with a huge discography that I feel like I was born just like 5 years too late to
Yeah,
like really be a diehard for. But all their music is just fast, fun, and upbeat. And this album just feels like a continuation of that. So I would be surprised if like diehards didn't like this.
that's what I was thinking too. Because like I had this on, like I had to drive down the Barnegie yesterday, so I listened to this like on the way there and on the way home, and like
Yes.
I would just had like a smile on because like this is like a perfect like summer album, and like you said, it's so much fun. The songs are catchy. So obviously like I'm not a guitar guy, but like I feel like it's safe to say they kind of write songs like Blink where they're easy to play on guitar. Is that accurate, you'd say, like by listening to this one?
Yeah, I think so. I think if anything, just like the pace they play them would probably be harder than like
Yeah.
the notes. And like the bass seemed like kind of complicated a little bit at times also, which was nice.
I'd love to have him on the podcast. He owns like a tattoo parlor in Bradley and actually
Yes.
gave Sandra her tattoo.
No
But
way.
she had no idea until she went in there and she's like, do you know Brian and the Bouncing Souls? I was like, yeah, why? She's like, oh, he just gave me a tattoo.
Oh my God. That's crazy. I was just talking about him because Lauren, who I just mentioned, was saying she wants a Bouncing Souls tattoo, but she kind of wants him to do it. But it's like a year wait list or something like that.
And then Sandra like nonchalantly signed up with him, not
That's
knowing
so
he was in the Bouncing
so
Souls.
funny. She accidentally.
I was like, how did you not
That's
know that?
great. That's amazing. I
But
really enjoyed this album. I feel like I just want to do this little imitation that I feel like is all their songs.
a lot of woes and O's.
Oh, oh, do, 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 do. It's just, it's just like that. And like and I love it. It's
It's a Bouncing
definitely
Souls staple.
yeah. Also the one song is called Kenver. He's saying Denver, right? Am I crazy here?
I had that in my notes. I was like, is he saying Denver or Kenver?
It really sounds like he's saying Denver, but the song's called Kenver. It just, I don't know.
Those first two songs are really good. 10 Stories High and Back to Better. I
Yeah.
hit repeat a couple times on those. And True Believer Radio, obviously a callback to one of their biggest
Yeah.
songs. And I also wrote like this could be like their Sirius FM station if they ever got one. It would be called True Believer Radio.
Oh, that's a great idea. They have enough music to probably do a station and they tour like all the time. So if there's live recordings, they could do that.
I want them to do their I think it's called is it Stoked for Summer? With
Yeah, yeah.
their annual like summer stage show. Like I kind of want to
Yeah.
go this year if they do one.
Yeah. Especially because we have like no summer stage shows.
Yeah.
And then like hopefully their support is a band we might know a little better. But even if not, like it'll give us reason to just like binge Bouncing Souls all summer, which
Yeah,
seems like the perfect time to do that.
it really does. I mean, they normally have great support. I think like last year was like Hot Water Music. They've had like the Menzingers before.
Yeah. I know you've been hoping for Anti-Flag this year, which is definitely
Yeah,
a
because
possibility.
they're touring with them in like around like April, May. So just
Oh,
announced the Asbury show with Annie Flag. I mean, knock two birds with one stone there.
yeah. That would be nice. I wonder when is that just like usually July?
I
Stoked
think
for
it's yeah,
summer.
like right in the middle of
Yeah.
July usually.
Surprised it's not announced yet. I guess it's still kind of early,
Yeah, because
but
they don't have any Jersey shows on their tour dates. So I'm assuming it has to be there
yeah. I think they've done Stoked for Summer like every year
almost every year,
for like ever.
and they just rattle through like 35 songs in their sets. It's so cool.
Oh, it's amazing. It seems like a great time. That's another one where I was talking about my desire for matinee shows, but like if I were to see them at the Stone Pony at a show called Stoked for Summer, I almost feel like I'd rather it be like in the middle of the day. The sun's out, like I don't know.
It'd be like
Why
vintage
why
Warp
are there
Tour.
no middle of the day shows? I don't
Well,
get
Warp
it.
Tour used to be like that until
Yeah,
like their
yeah,
headliners would go on like 7:30 at night after you were like dead for the
yeah.
entire day.
Yes. No, they used to like hand out Red Bull like it was nothing at those things. Or Rockstar maybe. I think
Oh
Rockstar.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
people would just throw them during sets. So it backfired
Uh,
in a way.
yeah. Just get thousands of teenagers hopped up on caffeine
What could go wrong?
and
Speaking of Warp Tour, though, our last new album of the week.
Fall Out Boy
I want you to go
is
first. I want to hear what you think. Is
is back.
that
So
a question mark
much,
or a period?
so much for Stardust, or so much Stardust, which I think we could even look into that if we wanted to, because it's kind of like if it's so much Stardust, that sounds cheerful and happy. But if it's so much for Stardust, then it sounds kind of like bitter and gloomy, which the album kind of does, because like lyrically, it gets a little dark at times.
Oh
All
yeah,
the songs are I I really enjoyed this album and I listened to it a bunch between Friday and right now,
I
Sunday
did too.
morning. It's every song has its own like vibe to it, which is great. It's very 70s and 80s at times. It's arena rock at times. Like whatever they're doing with those string sections are so awesome. They have one song that sounds like a WWE like intro or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
It's so crazy. And
they have like
they
a disco like one. It almost it's yeah.
yes.
Let me restart that. It almost sounds like a the Earth, Wind, and Fire. Do
Dude,
you remember?
yes, I wrote that exact thing down. I
That's a
was
What
gonna
a Time to
ask
Be
you.
Alive.
Yes, and the way it like builds to the chorus or like out of the chorus has like the like da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Yes, dude, it reminded me of that so much. I'm so glad you said that. 'Cause I didn't see that anywhere online when I was trying to see what the how the fans were feeling. I
I
didn't
didn't catch that till like my third listen though. I was like, wait, if you just drop that line and it goes in like perfectly. Is
it really does. So they got back with Neil Avrin. I don't know if that's how you say it. That
that a
seems pretty good.
producer?
Yeah, but he because he worked on Infinity on High and From Under the Cork Tree, bunch of
Okay.
Yellow Card albums, Newfound Glory self-titled, Sticks and Stones, Say Anything self-titled, Minutes to Midnight, Make Believe by Weezer. So like he's got his finger on the pulse with this stuff. And
There was a lot of Infinity on High influence here, I felt like.
so I did go back a little, but I didn't go back to Infinity on High. I went to Foley because that was the one that everyone said was like the last like Fall Out Boy album. And then like they took a hiatus after that, right?
Yeah. And then their Save Rock and Roll, I remember being decent. It was
Yeah,
poppier than usual, but it was still a decent album.
yep. I put that one on too. That one had like a lot of features. And they started like they had like Big Sean on a track and stuff, so you could tell they were kind of starting to go
In the pop pool.
more pop, which is 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 allowed. They're allowed to do that.
Yeah,
um
they went too much into the deep end on the last album though, and I'll always stand by that.
yeah, I didn't even recognize songs off of that album. I used to like they'd be on the radio, like, oh, who is this? Because like it's Fall Out Boy. Could not have guessed that. But this album, I think if you're gonna be a band like Fall Out Boy and you want to make an album that's gonna get radio play and be popular and like tickle that pop music itch, I think they found a really good sweet spot with this one.
And there's
It
still like I still love the single "Love from the Other Side." Like that's still like it's like a vintage Fall Out Boy song. Like there's guitars back, it's catchy.
Yep.
Even like what's the other one I wrote down is
Um
well, pretty much
hold me
just
like
guitar was back as a whole. I just feel like on this album, which was like a breath of fresh air.
yeah. I will say I would have liked like a solo or two.
I kept waiting for it, but it never
There was a
came.
few moments like Muse, the one something Muse, unless it's just Muse, I don't know. But that like
I am my own muse.
sort of had a solo. Heaven Iowa was the same deal where like the guitar would like kind of do a run up the neck, mimicking vocals a little bit, but it just never like broke out. And I don't think it would have felt out of place. I don't think it would have alienated listeners if they're trying to
No,
go mainstream. Like this feels like a fun borderline arena album at times, and I think a solo like fits that vibe perfectly. And I really wish they would have just like put like two or three in there.
yeah, that's the only thing I felt was missing with this one.
Yeah,
But I feel like they did you for Fake Out. Did that kind of remind you of like Untitled Blink, like slash The Cure a little bit, like that dark guitar tone?
yeah, I can see that. And it had like peak Fallout Boy lyrics in there.
Yeah,
Like, do you laugh? Do you laugh about me whenever I leave, or do I just need more therapy? Like, that's
vintage.
yeah, for real. And like the falsettos in the choruses are great. That was a good one. There was one Heaven, Iowa. Did that gave me In the Air Phil Collins vibes
It did feel
at
like
the
that.
beginning. It didn't like break out the same way that song breaks out, but it had that kind of cool like dreamy type intro.
And I feel like vocally it had that like the strongest chorus probably, at least like the way he like delivered it. Like you could tell he's like Patrick Stump was putting his all into
Yeah,
that one. Even the guitar like was perfectly
yeah.
complimenting him during the chorus.
I almost stopped you. I was gonna say I think Scar-Crossed Lovers had the strongest one, but that's Heaven, Iowa.
That's the song, yeah.
So I'm in agreement. And the way after listening a few times, I started picking up on more things. Like Scar-Crossed Lovers, every chorus he sings it, it's just a little stronger.
Yep.
I just
Exactly
thought
what I was
that was
thinking.
like a really cool thing because the first chorus that hits left me wanting more. I'm like, man, I really wish he like punched into this harder. But then by the end, he is, which is just it's great. I always reference Weezer when I think of stuff like that. When songs like tease the good parts, they make you want it, and then by the end, they give it to you. It's great. Um,
And it had Pink Seashell, which was a clip from Reality Bites, a dark clip from Reality Bites.
yeah, I was gonna ask you. I didn't know if that was from a movie or if they just got Ethan Hawke to like ramble for.
That would be cool, but it is from Reality Bites.
That's
Great 90s
cool.
movie.
Um, the title track, "So Much for Stardust," had such a cool vibe with like that like really deep piano.
Almost like a hip hop vibe a little bit, right?
Dude, it
Did you get
reminded
that
me of
too?
something off of 8 Mile. Like
Yeah.
or maybe just 8 Mile. Um
Yeah. Or
yeah, I think it is
like to
8 Mile.
lose yourself kind of
Or
almost.
no, like is it Run Rabbit Run or there was something on that had that like low piano keys.
Oh, I think it's
I
Eight
think it
Mile.
is 8 Mile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me think of that. It might just be like the same kind of like uh tone or key or whatever. But and they also like reference back to the first track
That was
lyrically in
cool.
that, which like what would you trade the paid for and something about a dagger. I don't remember. But
Almost felt like a movie score too. Do you like get those vibes with it?
Yeah, because they worked strings in at the end of the first track, and
They brought him back for
um
this one.
yeah, that one, and then there was one in the middle. I forget. Um, but yeah, strings were spread out nicely throughout it. Hold Me Like a Grudge gave me like huge Michael Jackson vibes at the beginning.
I wrote that too. I'm
Yeah.
glad you caught that.
The way like he was like
So,
finishing words with like
yep.
yeah, like that kind of stuff. And like that like muted guitar, like like remind me of um whatever. Whatever I'm thinking
Yeah,
of.
those early verses, especially with the Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, by the end it kind of disappears, the Michael Jackson-ness, but it's heavy in the front. And the bass kind of has another one bites the dust vibes to it a little bit too. You could just hear their influences spread out. And I don't know if this is true. It seems like it probably very much so is. But Nicole was saying she remembered reading at some point that like um Patrick Stump, right?
Yep.
Is like a huge Michael Jackson fan and like he was like a big influence on him. So
They have cover Beat It, which was
yeah,
an awesome cover. John
yeah.
Mayer playing the solo.
It's sick. That's the guitar thing I just did 30 seconds ago that I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, it gave me that kind of same vibes as Beat It. I didn't know they covered it, which is cool. It definitely
You never heard that
checks
cover
out.
before?
I don't think so, but now I want to. So Good Right Now is just like a fun 80s song. Like some of these
I wrote
songs
that
I
one too.
I feel like could have like been in the Breakfast Club or something. Like it just had that kind of like walk across desks, pumping your fist vibe. Yeah, I was really surprised with this. I think they did a great job. I think majority of these songs could be a single, so like that's something I know they're going for. I would love to see them live after listening to this album.
I was going to mention that at the end.
It's just
They are playing
another.
the Art Center, but
Oh, true. We could get like lawn
with Bring Me
seats
the
for.
Horizon,
Huh.
it'd
All
probably be a
right.
really good show.
Let's check out the date and check out what the lawn is like. Could be fun. Just slowly Phil Summer shows up.
Yep,
We
we'll
don't
get there.
we don't need Starland and the Pony. We can do it without them. We can just go to Brooklyn and PNC. Yeah, great slew of albums this week. I really liked how they were all different too, which was nice. It's not like we had to listen to like five punk albums. Like we really got a nice blend. Um,
A little bit of
yeah,
everything.
it was great. I think August Burns Red was probably like the hardest listen, but
Like I said,
it
you have to be in the right environment for it.
yeah. I was also glad I stuck with it though, because once it did kind of click, it felt good. Like Fall Out Boy, it didn't need to click. Like that's an album you put on and you're pretty much singing along to these songs
Oh
the
yeah,
first listen. I just thought like the dichotomy between two albums like that was really interesting because they're I like them both, and one you could put on and right away it's good. The other takes some time, which is good. I like when music challenges you, and
yeah. That one is
they're
for sure challenging.
very different bands, so they don't really need to be compared. But uh, just was interesting listening to them, back
Quick
to back.
quick final Fallout Boy thoughts. So I can't tell if my bar was just so low that I love this one, or if it's really a good album. I
Uh,
think it's really a good album, but I don't know if I don't want to seem like I'm overreacting on day
I,
3 of its release.
I think it's a little bit of both because you're not the first person I've heard say that where they cleared the very low bar that they set for themselves. But if you told me a few years ago that we'd be listening to a new Fall Out Boy record right now and enjoying it, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So like
Yeah, that's fair.
that's good enough for me. That does kind of work towards your low bar theory, but I think the songs are really well done. Like I said before, like each song kind of has its own vibe, which is nice. It doesn't feel like a cheap attempt at making pop songs. Like
No,
it feels like a good cohesive album. So I think regardless of where the bar was, they did a good job. All right, I think it's time we should send it over to our interview with Jarrett Dougherty, drummer for Screaming Females. He was great. We got into a lot of cool stuff. We did have to wrap a little early. He was kind of on a time crunch, but we'd love to have him back on. We talked about a lot of cool stuff from like Marissa's guitar playing to how the band came up and the whole DIY aspect of it.
Him booking their
So
shows,
yeah, yeah. We even got a little fish talk in there, believe it or not. So
as
yeah,
always on this pod. So
yep, that's right. Whenever we can. Okay. So yeah, Jarrett Dougherty. Let's talk to him. Okay, we now welcome on a very special guest. He is Jarrett Dougherty, drummer for one of the most badass punk bands to come out of New Jersey, Screaming Females. They dressed up the horses and set them loose, and they just put out a new album, Desire Pathway. Go check it out. It's awesome. It's been on repeat for both of us. Jarrett, thank you so much for coming on and finding time amongst the touring. I know you guys have been very busy. You just
Yeah,
got back
thanks for
from
having me.
Alaska. Yeah, thanks for coming on. So you just got back from Alaska and tour starts in like a week?
That's right.
Oh man.
Um, so yeah, I've been trying to prep everything, getting ready for the tour, doing all the advancing and stuff. So trying to get all the details. And it's like you got shows later in the tour, and of course I can get stuff done on tour, but I'm always like as much of the information as I can have ahead of time makes everything easier. So I'm just like, I know it's a month till the show, but I'm leaving in a few days. If you could let me know when we need to be there, that would be great.
Yeah. Are you in New Jersey now?
I'm in
Or
Philly.
Philly? Okay. Yeah, so you come back around to Philly like what, halfway through the tour? Maybe
Yeah,
a little
well,
later?
we do a full routing through the US and then we're home for like a week and then we play Philly, Boston, and New York and then we're home for like well, we got a couple shows we're just about to announce going up to Pouzza Fest in Montreal in May, but basically we got a couple things here and there in May, but we're home for most of that and then we go to Europe for a couple weeks in June.
That's cool. Well, you're definitely like used to touring by now, so you probably do have it down to a science, getting ready.
Uh, my my go-to is to wait until the morning I have to leave to pack, and
Naturally.
whatever I forget, I can just get somewhere else.
how
That's
did
a good plan.
Alaska come about? 'Cause I feel like I don't really hear of too many bands like going up there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a long time coming. We've been real something we've wanted to do for a long time. We've before doing Alaska last week, we had done 49 states, Puerto Rico, and DC. So it was something we had been dreaming about getting to for years. And I had talked to various people over the years that had been nice enough to reach out when I had kind of put it out into the ether, via social media or asking people who I know had been to Alaska. And the people who had gotten back, um, it had always seemed like a possibility, but maybe not exactly what we were looking for, or like, oh, they weren't sure if the time frame would work and that kind of stuff. So we knew that we had the new album coming out, and we were like, this is the moment to try to make it happen. Once again, put it out there, and this person Jaybird ended up getting in touch with us, and they played in this band Termination Dust from Alaska that toured the lower 48, and they did a tour opening for Modest Mouse and stuff. So Jaybird knew a little bit more about the lay of the land of touring, and that helped out. But we had one conversation with them on Zoom, and it was like just seemed perfect. They were like, my big inspiration for bringing a band to Alaska would be to make sure that you don't just play Fairbanks and Anchorage, go out and play some of the smaller towns that I know are good for shows, but a lot of bands never get to. And they're like, and I want to make sure that there's all ages shows in Fairbanks and Anchorage if we can make it happen because there's so few all ages opportunities for kids these days in Alaska. So that's what we did. And we were like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we wanted. And they're like, hey, I'm not trying to make any guarantees, but I know I've toured through Alaska enough to know that people will be excited and you're not going to lose money on this trip. And I was like, boom, there we go. Doing some interesting stuff, not losing money. Let's make this happen. Let's lock it in.
Oh, that's awesome. Was it the first time playing like the new songs?
We'd played a few of them. I mean, some of them we'd even played like pre-pandemic, but they were probably slightly different versions of the songs. And then when we did the tour with Touche Amore and the Menzingers last fall, there was I think Brass Bell and Morning Dove we had played a few times on that tour, testing them out. But the vast majority of the songs we have not played until we had our big annual party in New Jersey, Garden Party, a month ago when we released the record. So we did all of the songs between those two, between the two nights there. So that was kind of the first time we played a lot of them live.
That's great. It feels like you guys are so you've been around for a little bit, but I'm like just been kicking myself for not hearing about you sooner because we're right here in Jersey. And I'm like all these amazing opportunities to see you, and it took this long, but I mean, I'm glad you're on our radar now, and I definitely want to get to that Brooklyn show, even if I have to go all the way to Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's out there too. I mean, everything's gotten deeper and deeper into Brooklyn over the years. So I know coming from Jersey, it's like you know, I tell people this who aren't from the area when they end up here. I'm like, oh, if you're playing in Philly and you got to play Brooklyn the next day, like whatever it says on Google Maps or whatever, you got to add at least an hour and a
Oh
half
yeah.
or 2 hours just to be sure, because it's only gonna say it's like 2.5 hours, but that is
Yeah.
for sure a lie.
No matter which way you go, too, like whether it's like the tunnel or GWB, there's just always traffic in every time of day.
For sure.
Yeah. It's just literally so close but so far. Like
I know.
exactly.
Anywhere else in most in the world, if you looked at like your Google Maps and it said 12 miles away, you'd be like, "Oh, that's close." Except if you're going from New Jersey to New York, then it's not
Yep.
close.
No, not at all. You mentioned like the all ages shows that you wanted to make a point to do in Alaska, and I feel like that's kind of always been a point of your band because in like my research and everything, I know you guys came up in New Brunswick and like the basement scene, and a big thing that I always saw was how like at Rutgers there wasn't like really an outlet for bands, so you kind of had to take it into your own hands. What was it like coming up in that New Brunswick basement scene?
I mean, for sure, exactly what you just said. The most of the people who are going to shows are not 21. So at the time there was one bar, and now it doesn't even exist anymore that would have shows. So it's just tough. The university is really not supportive of arts, even though there's a good art school there. There's just like if you're doing stuff off campus, they don't care. And we've been to a number of other schools, much smaller schools, where they'll have like some on-campus venue that they let like a group of kids book, and there'll be bands through every week. But instead, Rutgers would invest in one show a year where they'd get, you know, Third Eye Blind and 50 Cent to play or something. So yeah, it's just if you want to make something happen in New Brunswick, you got to do it yourself. You got to do it with your friends. And the all ages shows were always a big part of that. Because otherwise, it's like the only thing that seems obvious is like frat parties and stuff, and those are obviously not welcoming to everybody and can be dangerous for some people. So basement shows, while not being like a perfect utopia, always seemed like they gave a better option for freaks to do something. And I mean, we've continued to try to make a point of making our shows accessible, but sometimes doing the bar show is the best option, or else we just want to switch it up. Like this time we go to Seattle, we're playing a place that's 21 and up, but the last, I don't know, 5 times we've been to Seattle, we played Vera Project, which is an all ages space. So it's just like you don't want to just burn out and see the same exact room every time you go to a city for however many years. So we'll switch it up occasionally for that. But for the most part, if there's an all ages option, that's the one we're going to choose.
Piggybacking off that, like I know you guys have been on like Don Giovanni Records for like over a decade now. Like, what is it about that label that's like kept you guys hanging around, and like what was it like to initially sign with them too?
Yeah. What is it like? uh,
We hear like
Don
so many horror stories of labels, and like this one seems like a good relationship, but I know you're about to tell us if it
Yeah.
is or not.
No, for sure it is. It's Joe, who runs the label, is a really good friend of ours. It's somebody I hang out with outside of doing band stuff and have for years. So does Marissa. Joe played in bands from New Brunswick. He actually didn't even go to Rutgers, which is like really rare. He went to college in Boston, and then him and his friend that he met in Boston, Zach, who they started the label together, actually moved to New Brunswick after they graduated just to be part of like New Jersey punk rock and released records. They released a lot of hardcore 7 inches at first, and then the kind of like a big change for them and the kind of a breaking point was releasing Dork Rock Cork Rod by the Ergs, which was I think their first full-length release and was super successful. At the time they just released the vinyl, which was like, I know it seems so wild to say this now, but it was almost ignored compared to the CD release. So it took a long time for them to sell, you know, the 500 copies or whatever that record, but it's been through many pressings now since then. So then we were just a band in that scene, and Joe, somebody we knew from shows, he played in the band for Science, and at some point he just started showing up to our shows a lot, including one tour where he I forget where we were. We were either in like we're in like Richmond or something, and Joe's at the show, and I'm like, Joe, what are you doing in Richmond? He's like, I came to see you. And I was like, whoa. And then like the next day we're in Baltimore. I'm like, Joe, what are you doing in Baltimore? He's like, I'm coming to see you. And at like the last night of that tour of that run of shows, we ended up staying in the same spot, and he was like, listen, I just want to do a record for Screaming Females, and let me lay out exactly what I think I could do for you guys. And because before that we'd always self-released stuff, and he made a good argument, so we went with it. And since then we've always just kind of grown together. And you know, I see bands that'll have like one record or you know, pretty successful record on a small independent label that seems to have really interesting stuff going on, and then they'll jump ship to go to Sub Pop or Matador or something. And to me it's like, would you rather be the coolest band and the band that this small label is most interested in, or be the kind of like auxiliary band that's not selling, you know, 300,000 copies of your record on like a much bigger label? And I guess some bands, you know, their hope is that they're going to be the band that sells the 300,000 copies, but I've seen that swallow up a lot of people over the years. And most often you go to those settings and you realize that uh, while they might be excited about doing your record, they're not going to put any more resources behind it than you would have gotten at a smaller label. And the thing you're definitely not going to get is you're not going to get the focus that you would have gotten at the smaller label. And I'm assuming you're not going to have a great community necessarily with those bands that you've never met before and have been around doing completely different things that are on those bigger labels. So for us, it's always been about how can we make it work, and how can we be sort of competitive, you know, the Trojan horse style of getting in and trying to find our way into the same stuff that these bigger labels might have access to while doing it ourselves.
That's awesome. It's so cool too, because it does like allow you to keep being you. Like you see it so many times. Like you said, like bands go to a big label, and a lot of times those labels try to change them to just imitate whoever they think might be the most successful. So it's cool that you guys have a spot that you feel comfortable at and you can like grow on your own.
Yeah, and it's even like, I'd suggest that some of those labels, some of the times that you see a band change when they go to a label like that, it's not even the pressure of the label necessarily as much as the pressure of the band on themselves. They're like, we gotta try something different. We gotta do something different. This is our big chance, you know? And I
Yeah.
feel like everybody should always evolve as artists in the way that feels comfortable to you. And if you want to take some risks, then take those risks. But I think there's a lot of pressure to artists to like, this is my chance, you know, this is how I'm really gonna like make it or something. So let's get in a producer who's gonna show me how to write a song and sing for real.
I'm like that same vein, but like in the opposite direction. Like as a DIY band like yourselves, like do you ever feel the pressure of getting too popular? Like like you love playing like say smaller venues and all ages and stuff, and as you get bigger, those opportunities might change because of your popularity. Like, is that something you think about, or it's just it is what it is?
I'd say more than anything, it's how you can like delegate the tasks that are involved with growing as a band. So, for years I booked all the shows. At some point, it was becoming untenable for me to book the shows as well as do all the other stuff that I do for the band, as far as, essentially just answering the emails and making the phone calls, which takes up a lot of time. Um, so we got a booking agent. But then when we ended up in a situation with a booking agent that we weren't comfortable with how they were handling us, because they were kind of like uh they weren't treating some of those relationships with smaller promoters and DIY spots that we really did like to go back to the way that we had hoped they would. We were like, hey, we can take this on ourselves. We've done it before. So when we released our last album, All at Once, that was the biggest undertaking we had ever had. And for the tours for that album, the initial tours, I booked all the shows myself. So it's like it's not pressure as much as like figuring out what tasks we can still take care of. And if we do have to bring someone on, like hopefully it's somebody we can really trust and understand where we're coming from and has our best interests in mind. And that's why when we do find people we like working with, we work with them for a long time, because it's kind of a risk when you put a piece of something, a piece of your band, something you care about so much, into someone else's hands. And you don't know what their conversations are like when you're not around, despite what they might say to you. So, it's like right around this time, leading up to a new album, and the tours right after the new album come out is some of the longest working days that I have doing my part of what I do in this band. And sometimes I'm just like, I'm pulling my hair out, like I can't send another email, and then I'm like, but I have to. It's like I've been at this for 9 hours today, and it's unending. But then I remember this only happens once every 4 or 5 years, and it's for maybe 6 months at most, and then it chills out a bunch. So the the control that we retain, and also the money we retain by not having a manager taking care of that stuff, is, I'd say, a positive trade-off. Although for 6 months every few years, I feel like maybe it would be nice to have somebody answering those emails.
That drummer energy that gets you through.
Hopefully, I don't know what gets me through, other than I know it's going to be really fun when we get out there and when people hear the music.
Yeah, it looks like I mean, I'm just like a basement musician, but playing on stage like that and like writing your own music, it's got to be the most fun thing ever. Every video I've seen of you guys, you're smiling like ear to ear on the drum set, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, but it's also something like more than fun to me, which is that it's like really fulfilling, because sometimes when you are sitting in a van and you play a late show, you have to drive out of town, you end up staying on some shitty motel, like with it only has like a subway attached to it or something, and you eat the worst food and get up and go on 4 hours of sleep. That's not like the most fun thing you've ever done in your life. But at the end of it, like being able to connect with people and bring your music to people is like incredibly fulfilling, which is something that can drive you through even the parts that aren't necessarily fun all the time.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Um, I we talked about Desire Pathway a little before. Got to bring it up because the album is so great. You guys had it felt like what 3 or 4 years to work on it about since the last one. Were you writing it the whole time? Did the pandemic delay it at all, or was this always the plan?
It's been 5 years since All at Once, which was our last full length. We put out a few things in between there, but a lot of that was like older material, like releasing it on vinyl for the first time or something like that. Um, and we had written probably about half of the songs that actually ended up on the record, maybe a few more, maybe 6 or 7, before the pandemic. And in early 2020, we had started having plans to record in the fall or winter of 2020. So when the pandemic hit, that obviously canceled those plans. And we just kept writing. I mean, there was a long time where we didn't really see each other. The longest we've ever gone without practicing or writing. But we had some kind of socially distanced writing sessions. I didn't have a drum set in my house, so I was using some drum machines that I have around, sending ideas that way. And some of those ideas ended up getting onto the record. Obviously, it wasn't the drum machine versions, it was versions that we ended up playing live and working out once we were able to get back together. But yeah, the album definitely got delayed. I mean, we certainly didn't intend to take 5 years. But then once it did get delayed, we decided not to really rush it. We felt like we wanted to wait. We wanted to make sure we had the vinyl for the day it came out. Vinyl delays have been literally like the reason that determined when we were putting out this record was because they were like 14 months is how long it's going to take to guarantee that we'll have the vinyl for the day it comes out. Might come earlier, but that's the amount of time to guarantee it. So we got the record done in December of 2021, mixed and mastered and everything, and then we're like, okay, February 2023, that's when it's coming out.
Wow. That's gotta be rough waiting on it that long, like having it in the bank ready to go.
Yeah, but it also enabled us to like set up this year and these tours and everything the way we really wanted to. Which you can get a tour together in a couple months if you really need to, but to play all the exact towns on the days that you want to be there, organize with other bands that you're really excited about playing with, all that stuff takes a lot of planning to make sure it happens. There's a smoke alarm going off in my house. I don't know if you can hear that.
Are you in danger?
No.
Okay.
Big question.
It just means my partner Christina forgot to turn the vent on while she started cooking.
Oh, classic.
So one of my favorites off the new album is Ornament. And like that song for some reason just fills me with like a bunch of nostalgia, like 90s pop rock, which I'm like a sucker for. I'm just curious, like, was that like part of the inspiration going into that one?
I don't know if it's directly the inspiration, but Mike actually wrote the majority of that song, which we write songs in a bunch of different ways, but usually it's the three of us just kind of getting together and sort of just hashing stuff out, and so we start to come up with ideas. But occasionally Mike and Marissa will come in with a more formed song. Mike, it's more rare that Mike would come in with like basically a full song and be like, here's the song. But Ornament is one of those, and Mike is a sucker for that sound that you just described as well. I mean, he loves power pop, he loves 90s kind of pop rock.
Yep.
He also loves the kind of like ramped up version of that stuff. Stuff like, I don't know, like the Marked Men or something, where it has elements of like really poppy melodies, but they just kind of like play it faster and more haphazardly or something. So to me, it really has like Mike's DNA on it. So I think you're right in your evaluation, but I don't know if he sat down to do that or if it's just more what happens when Mike sits down and starts playing guitar.
No, that's awesome. That's probably gonna be like one of my most played songs of the year.
Nice.
Come December.
Well, you should check out Mike's solo project, the King Mike Entertainment System, which has more of his compositions. They're a little less refined than that one, but they're kind of in the same vein.
I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's one of my favorite parts about the album is how it can go from like a super heavy song like Brass Bell to like something like Ornament. And it's got a really good flow to it. And like, I'm sure you guys put thought into the order of the songs and everything. Did you did you go into writing this with, we want to have a few heavy songs, we want to have, a certain amount of solos, like, because I'm sure you could write a whole, like Brett said, like 90s power pop album if you wanted to. So finding that balance, I feel like would be difficult.
Yeah, I think that the way we write is we try not to think too much about that stuff while we're writing. But then when we get into the studio, we try to bring in more songs than we're gonna end up with on the record, so that we have some options. And then that really comes down to like sequencing when you're like, okay, something like the song So Low, which is just Marissa playing by herself for the most part. Like that song is the kind of song where you're like, okay, this seems like it's going to be a really cool idea, but then we have to see how the album starts to flow. Because if we have 4 songs that are Marissa playing essentially solo, they're not all going to make the record. That's not going to be the best use of the space on the record. So I think that it's part little column A, little column B. It's column A being we just write songs that seem natural to us, and then column B being like when it's time to actually trim and figure out what goes on the record. We don't want to make sure there's some variety. Obviously, we want to make sure that there's some of the elements that people have come to expect, like some killer guitar solos or whatever, and not just like trim all of that stuff away.
Speaking of guitar solos, like, do you ever just like sit there and be like, "Holy shit, Marissa's just absolutely incredible on guitar"?
I mean, sure. It's been doing it for years. I think that being in the process with her, I see how hard she works on it. So to me, it's not exactly the same magic, that it is once you
More
just
used to
see.
it.
Yeah, well, it's not that I see the process, you know what I mean? And I see how certain solos she'll just have right from the beginning. She'll understand the kind of frame of it, and she might not play the same thing every time because she just feels so comfortable in whatever we're playing. But then other solos, Mike and I'll be like, "This is the spot in the song you got to solo," and she's just like, "Damn it, that is a hard thing to solo over. I'm gonna have to like work on this." And I'll see her like work through that stuff, even sometimes into the studio, um, sitting there and doing stuff like recording bits and bits and bits and then kind of chopping them together, but then realizing, oh, this is how the flow of this is going to go, take that in and then replay it all. So like really like making sure that it feels natural and it is like, a single take or something that feels like a good solid idea and not just a bunch of little pieces, but it came from this process that took a long time. It wasn't just her sitting down, you know, doing the solo first time through instantaneously. But then when we get out there and play live, I feel like that's the moments where it's just like stuff happens live that I don't know if we could ever recreate if we wanted to. You try to play it again and you're just like, I don't know, it just isn't the same as it was that moment. And some of the stuff that she plays live on the spot, sort of inspired improvisational moments, is definitely mind-blowing stuff.
So I have to ask, I heard a story about how she had a professor at Rutgers, and I don't know if you were also in this class, who would make her play Fish songs. And we're both fans. We're like 2000s pop punk kids, but like we also just love Fish. So just like hearing that influence always makes me smile. Were you involved in the with the Fish professor?
So it was actually when her and Mike were in high school,
Oh, wow.
because they went to a private high school that had no music program at all. And Mike and Marissa were both obviously interested in music. So I think it's really cool and interesting that they just had like an after school program that their math teacher ran, which was just like, music club is what they called it. But rather than most people's experience of music in high school being like band or orchestra or choir or something, theirs was like getting together with their
This was
hippie,
Fish.
yeah, their hippie math teacher and doing Fish covers but actually like playing music, like playing instruments, and learning how to play and not just sitting there reading sheet music with your band director giving you
Yeah.
uh so it's really interesting. So neither of them came out Fish fans for sure. But if you guys are Fish fans, you'll know that there's some overlap into other stuff. The Velvet Underground, especially. They did the
Yeah.
Fish covered Loaded and stuff like Ween, which
Hmm.
has like some jam aspects, but then some totally whacked out like punk and noise aspects going on, and then stuff like Pavement, which like plays well with the jam band fans. Like Malcolmus is definitely an incredible guitar player, and it kind of has that slacker vibe to it that some of the Fish stuff has. So they managed to find some common ground there. But out of the three of us, surprisingly, I was not in music club, but I have been to far more Fish shows than Mike or Marissa
Let's
have,
go.
but not in a long, long time. I think the last Fish show I went to would have been the festival. the festival they did in Maine right before they took their big hiatus. So whatever that would have been,
Oh,
like 2003,
that was the
2, something like that.
yeah. That was a rough one. If that was like
An emotional
the
show.
official last one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
You,
sometime around then, I also went to a show. The first one I went to was at PNC uh, Bank Arts
2013
Center.
maybe? That was my first show.
Oh no, this would have
This is
been so
earlier.
this was oh yeah, so that was the first show I went to, so that would have been 98, I think.
Oh
And I
damn.
didn't know
That's
anything
awesome.
about the band before that show, and then ended up that that was like a classic show from that period, which I didn't know anything about. So I just like somebody brought me and I was like, "What the hell is this? This is wild." So
Usually
I have
how
my
it
time
goes.
listening to some live Fish stuff, although I haven't checked in on them in many years. Although actually during the pandemic they had some of those live streams they were putting up of old shows.
Yeah,
And I
dinner and
think
a
I checked
movies.
out. Yeah, I think I checked out one of those.
That's great. Yeah, because you guys definitely like jam plenty. And you said yourself like live, it kind of just sometimes stuff comes out that isn't exactly on the record, which is nice. And I was
Yeah,
also
I think that like the crew of people I grew up with in my small town. I grew up between two different towns, but the town that I went to high school in New Jersey, in Pequannock, it was like a really small town, and it's a town super focused on like the football team and like bang. It's like out of
yeah,
like a teenage movie. Like it like
yeah.
seems
Friday Night
like
Lights.
yes, totally. You're like, how are like adults so invested in the high school football teams? Uh, but um so there was like a small crew of freaks. So I feel like now via the internet and stuff, people can find like you're like I'm into punk and I'm a teenager. I can find other punks, you know. But at that time, it was like, okay, you're a hippie, you're a punk, you're a goth, you're that guy who's all into the weird drugs that you like find on the internet and order from somewhere. I don't know how you find that stuff, but we're all a crew now. We hang out, you know. And I think that you get some cross influence there that was really formative for me. So one of the things I came away from that was I would go see punk bands or indie rock bands, and I would just be like, I can't believe that they play these songs the same way in the same order every night for years. I was like, that's
Yeah.
wild. Why would you do that? Stretch out. Let's see something, you know? And then you find acts like Neil Young and Crazy Horse, who are certainly not what anyone would think of as like a hippie band, but they jam like crazy, you know, and they would take Sonic Youth and Pearl Jam on tour. So stuff like that started to have like a big influence on me. I was like, how could you get out there a little bit and not just play the same set the same way every night? But you don't necessarily have to be playing to the Fish fans.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about it all the time, and I was looking at your Alaska set list, and you do switch it up like quite a bit, which is nice because it would make me want to see you more than once in like a run, so to speak.
Yeah,
Like,
and for sure that came from also when we would play New Brunswick all the time. We'd be bringing bands through, touring bands. Um, I was like one of the people that, you know, there was a few of us that would run shows consistently in New Brunswick, and I was one of those people that was a contact for bands from all over the country to come play. And so Screaming Females would end up playing 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times even a month. And I was like, well, if I have any chance of not burning my friends out on seeing us play, we're gonna have to make it not the same exact thing every time.
Now, is there like a favorite song you like to play live? Like, if you had to pick one?
Ah, that's too hard. I've been having to like, okay,
How about top three?
okay, top three. Let's see. Right now, I really like playing Beyond the Void, which is like the third or fourth track on our new album, and it's got this really interesting feel and time signature thing that's like Marissa started playing that guitar part and she sent it in a demo to us, and it's a feel and a time signature that I've only encountered a few times. One of the most prominent being Manic Depression by Jimi Hendrix. And I was just like, whoa, that is so cool. That is a really rare thing to do. Um, but it's really hard. It's like playing the general groove, not so hard, but it changes time signatures a few times. Keeping that all straight was like for the first, months of trying to play that song, I was get lost in it constantly. And I was like, how am I ever gonna like hone in on this and make this feel normal and not just sit there like counting. And the way we kind of got there eventually is that we started jamming on that one. And it was like, oh, this is what we have to do. We have to jam on this enough that it becomes sort of like second nature, the like vibe of what this part is. So the song in the studio starts out with this kind of just like the riff and the drums just hitting like a kick drum. And it's kind of hard to just instantly get into that feel. So if I just like count like 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like me and Marissa aren't super tight when we first hit it together. So we discovered that if we like sort of just jam on that loop a little while, and even if it stops, then we have the feel in our head, and then we can kick into it properly. So, so when we first played it for the first time ever live at Garden Party, we didn't do that because we had not organized this jam in any way and didn't know if we could really pull it off and didn't want to just completely be a bumbling mess in front of 800 people or whatever. But then when we were in Alaska and we're like, hey, we're playing for 60 people in this arts center on like a Monday, but yeah, let's give it a try. And then suddenly it started to really feel good. So we did it a few more times. So that's one that's been a favorite for me recently, is both internalizing the groove of that song, which is so unique, and then also being able to kind of explore that and figure out what we're going to be doing for the intro of that song, which has been sort of spontaneous.
It's a great song. And it like one of the things I like about your music, or I notice what Marissa's playing, is how her vocal pattern will kind of imitate the guitar sometimes, which that's probably the only way I could play and sing if I had to do it. She doesn't exclusively do it, but and that song is a great example of that like wavy, like flowing kind of vocal pattern.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I think it comes a lot from we write a lot of our instrumentals first, and then Marissa layers the vocals on top of that, um, which causes a lot, means that there's a lot going on because we'll write these kind of dense compositions, and then it'll be like, okay, Marissa, now write a vocal on top of that. And sometimes that can be a struggle. And on our album Rose Mountain, we actually made a point of like pulling back from that. So we'd write these compositions. They'd be like all this complex crap that we were used to doing. And then we'd be like, okay, now let's cut all that out of the way and just write some chords that fit so that you can then focus on doing vocal melodies. And I think that that exercise from that album has kind of reformed the way we might think about songs. So even though we don't make it as explicit now, we do in our songs now try to leave some room and be like, okay, wait, even though it doesn't feel completely full, we will remember that there will be vocals on top of this at some point. So maybe we don't need to fill it out completely. But the other way of dealing with it is, hey, maybe the vocals can sort of follow that guitar line that's already there.
yeah, she's awesome at it. And you guys are like so tight as a band. And like obviously drums and bass are always gonna have their little thing going on, but I feel like Marissa's guitar playing is also kind of in the pocket with you guys. And it just I don't know, works really well. You got great grooves. I love the like spacey part in Brass Bell when it kind of drops out towards the end. Is something like that, like this is just a songwriting question, and I'm sure it's different for everything, but do you have kind of like the meat and bones of that song and then think like a spacey part towards the end would be really cool? Or like how does something like that make its way into a song?
Well, that part in particular was a very conscious decision to get that in there because as we were writing that song and listening back to some of our demos just from being at band practice and playing it back, it felt like it had this big epic intro that we had started to add to it, and uh, you know, big guitar solo, kind of like these epic, almost metal like riffs. And then I was looking at the song. I was like, this song is 2 minutes and 45 seconds long. I was like, this song feels way more epic than a 2 minute
30
song.
seconds of synth at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, there was this decision to try to add more to it to kind of make the length, and not just like, it's not like we were trying to hit a minute mark, but like the idea that this song felt really epic, so it should, like what we had of the song felt epic. So why don't we like uh flesh it out in such a way that it becomes more epic. So that's why it has essentially 2 bridges, which most songs we would write, we wouldn't be like, let's put 2 bridges in here. And it was because we were like, okay, what's something that we can do to make this song feel more epic? It's like we can have a part that kind of drops, and it's almost like a halftime thing happens, which is that more spacey part that you're talking about. And then we have that other part where it does this kind of interplay where the bass and guitar play like back and forth instead of playing at the same time with each other, and then has a couple like quick changes one after another there. So we're like, okay, those are 2 really different parts that are different from the rest of the song, and that'll make this whole thing feel pretty epic. But after it was like that part you're mentioning specifically, we'd added it in the first bridge. We're like, okay, getting towards epic. But then we're like, but we need something else. It's like, if we do add another bridge, it can't be just like sort of a rehash of the first one. What's something that can be completely different? It's like, well, the whole song has a lot of it's just like driving. Let's open it up. So that's like an obvious change to make in a general like idea. And then you have to figure out what that can be, and that took a while. There was a while where we were like, maybe we should just abandon this extra epic bridge that is like a more open idea, because we were not finding it. And then eventually we did find it.
Keeps
You
you on
guys
your
nailed it.
yeah.
Thank you.
It
Thank
keeps you
you.
on your toes as a listener, which I love. And then when the solo punches in at the end,
Yeah.
so good. You mentioned the synth in that song. I know you worked with is it Matt
Bayless.
Bayless? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he just have like a ton of synths hanging around and you were playing with them? Because I know he's in from Minus the Bear, right? And
Yeah.
they do decent amount of synth stuff.
Yeah, he actually played keyboards in Minus the Bear for years. He at some point he wanted to dedicate more of his time to engineering and producing than being on the road, but those were always like, his homies, those were his best friends. It wasn't like there was any animosity about him leaving. But we'd worked with Matt on the previous 2 records as well, Rose Mountain and All at Once. And for those 2 records, we went to Seattle, which is where Matt is based out of, and we recorded in 2 different studios. We went to each of those studios for a specific reason, to kind of go along with the ideas that we had about making Rose Mountain, and then the studio we went to make All at Once. And then when we decided that we wanted to work with Matt again for Desire Pathway, we wanted to make sure we weren't just like repeating ourselves. And I don't think we are ever a band that is just inherently going to repeat ourselves, but we do like to give ourselves as much of a push to do something new as we can. So one of the easy ways to do that is not record at the same spot and try something new as far as where you're recording. So for this one, we asked Matt, is there a destination studio that you've always wanted to go to? And his first thought was Pachyderm, which the studio ended up working at. And it's a purposeful built studio out in the woods in the middle of nowhere in Minnesota. It's like an hour and a half outside Minneapolis. And there's been a bunch of epic records recorded there. Most famously, probably In Utero was done there. Albini and Nirvana recorded that there. So yeah, you just live out in the woods in this weird old mansion with a studio, like a 5-minute walk into the woods from it. And we got to the studio, we went into the control room, we're getting stuff set up, and I look over, and in the corner of the room there is just a pile of rare synthesizers, these modular synthesizers, which are something that's come back into vogue over the last 10 or 15 years. And that's what synthesizers were initially like in the 60s and 70s. And if you've ever seen all the synthesizers with all the wires patched all over them, that's modular. It's like they're not pre-built the way all the signal flow is going to happen. You have to like put them together. And so in the 90s, it was the absolute lull of modular synthesizers, and it was just a few people who were just making them out of their garages still, basically. And one of those was this company called, I don't know how to pronounce it, it's either Weird or Wired, and they were out of Milwaukee. And they just had a stack of original wired synthesizers from Milwaukee sitting in the corner of this room. And I was just like, holy shit, I can't believe they have because they make like new versions of them, but these were the original ones. And I was like, I can't believe these are here. I gotta set these up. And I got to
Yeah.
hear them.
Yeah, how do you not play with those if they're just
Yeah, so they're really hard to work because it was such a weird format at the time. The people who were making them were pretty like esoteric in the way they thought about how music should be made. So it's definitely something you could spend months, if not years, exploring how to work them. But I had a couple hours and I just patched them together and got some cool sounds going. Got this sequencer running. Asked Mike to help me. The sequencer was really weird because it was these little knobs you had to fiddle with to get the notes, and you just like you breathed on the thing and it would go out of tune. So we were like tapping them to try to get them in tune with where we wanted them to be. So we ended up getting that intro for Brass Bell, which was kind of serendipitous because I had been imagining that intro for a really long time. Uh, and then I have some synthesizers that I thought about bringing, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if I can fit all that stuff. It's not worth it. It's just an intro, one song. Who cares? We don't need it. Then we got there, and I'm like, oh, this has been set in front of me. This intro's coming back. We're getting it done.
destiny.
Yeah.
Well, Jarrett, I know you said you're a little pressed for time. Thank you so much for coming on. This was so much fun. The new album is awesome. I can't wait to see you in Brooklyn when I make it happen. To travel
Cool.
the 20
Yeah.
miles for 2 hours.
Yeah. I see your Iron Sheik poster back there. So you
Yeah,
got
I
to make
threw
it.
had to throw the vinyl up for this one. I don't have yours
Yeah.
yet, but I've been looking at the record store, so it's
Cool.
it's
Cool.
it's on my radar.
And if you don't get it we'll definitely have it at the show. So we
Okay,
could
yeah,
sell it to you personally if need be.
that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah. Thanks
We
for having me.
we gotta have you back on sometime. I feel like there's like so much I still want to ask you. So
I
Yeah,
know
for
we
sure.
didn't
this has
get to
been
talk
awesome
about
though.
Steve Albini, but
Yeah.
it's
We'll get
okay.
there.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank you so much, and good luck on tour, and we'll see you out there hopefully.
Yep. Take it easy.
Later. And we're back. Thank you to Jarrett. That was a lot of fun. Think we're gonna go to that show. So hell
And
yeah.
hopefully get him back on at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they did that song with Garbage. We didn't get to talk about like the Steve Albini stuff. Um I don't know. There might have been more. I don't remember.
It was like the
But
first time we had like a bunch of topics we wanted to hit, and there was a large chunk we didn't hit, which is
yeah.
rare for us, but
But we got to
also
talk
good because it
about
left us wanting more.
yeah. And we got to talk about fish for like 10 minutes. So that was
It was
way
worth it.
more
Yep.
important than
Than
those
any
other
other topic.
those other dumb questions. uh yeah, what's going on this back half? We had not like a whole lot of news this week. But we talked about at the beginning. Linkin Park put out another song from the Meteora sessions. Um, what's the name? I just had it up.
Fighting myself.
Fighting myself.
You're fighting
Um,
yourself to remember the name of the song.
yeah, exactly. They I mean it's a Linkin Park song. It's great. It's cool to hear these B-sides. I think you know why this one is a B-side because it reminded me a lot of Paper Cut. Like the guitar was very similar. The dun 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 dun, dun was like that was in the verses. Brett, you said it reminded you of
Figure 09.
yes,
At least the chorus did.
yeah, yeah, and like the verse cadence gave me like faint vibes, which is cool though because this came out before Meteora. So,
But this was part of the Meteora sessions, right?
oh yeah, that's right.
That makes sense.
I had hybrid theory in my head because I was thinking of Paper Cut. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Um, yeah, and I think when you're a band putting together an album like Meteora had, I don't know, 12 songs. I'm just guessing. I don't have it
I
open,
think
but
12 or 13. But that was another one where it's like it
yeah,
just every single song was good.
13 because Numb was
Yeah.
13. But yeah, you like have to make some cuts, and if you have one song that sounds pretty similar to others, then like it's an obvious choice. But
I am
I just
excited we're getting these though.
yeah, exactly. Like R.I.P. Chester, one of the best probably like my favorite screamer of all
Oh yeah.
time. So any extra glimpse we can get into this like iconic time frame for the band is just bonus. So keep them coming.
Before they changed gears a little bit, because like Minutes to Midnight was obviously a departure from this sound a little bit.
Yeah. Just it was gradual though, because there were
Yeah.
songs like Bleed It Out, like kind of fit in with that. I really like Minutes to Midnight. It was after that where they kind of lost me with I don't know. I
Had a
don't even
couple weird
remember.
ones in there.
It was they lost me. But like Living Things and
The one where like there's like an eclipse on the album cover.
The Hunting Party. What else was
Hunting
out
Party is
here?
actually good. They had like a song with the guitarist from System of a Down on it.
Oh, that's cool. Did that one have like a ton of tracks? No, 12. I don't know. Was it be One More Light? No. These all have a normal amount of tracks. I feel like they put out an album with like a ton of tracks and it just kind of lost me. But
The Hybrid Theory Deluxe.
well, yeah, that one's like 8 albums.
Yeah.
It's
I
so
think this one
ridiculous.
might be just as long.
I'm here for it. It'll at
Yeah.
least get one listen, and then I need to remember this time to make a playlist to like pull the really good ones.
We'll have to do that further when we talk. I think that's a couple weeks away.
Nice.
Like first Friday in April, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. What a treat.
April 7th.
Yeah. Speaking of deluxe albums, we have another deluxe album coming. Silverstein, we've talked about this album a bunch. Misery Made Me. It was one of our favorite releases from last year. They're doing a deluxe with uh like 5 extra tracks. So they have this new one they just put out, Poison Pill. There's gonna be one called Stitches. Um Mary, or an orchestral version, which should be pretty cool. Don't Wait Up acoustic, Poison Pill acoustic, and then 2 live songs, Bankrupt and It's Over. So it's it's cool. I don't know. I it always feels weird, and I know this is gonna sound like I'm contradicting myself, but Linkin Park is not a full band anymore that's still making music. So hearing B-sides from them is different. But when you have a band like hyping up B-sides of a deluxe album, it's just like, I don't know, how excited can I get for the songs that you didn't think were good enough to make the album? Or you did think they were good enough and you purposely held them so you could do this like release a year later. I don't know. It's just
You're
weird.
reading my mind right now.
Yeah.
Deluxe albums have like always pissed me off, probably more than they should. Just because like put it all out at once. If you have things like you're like teetering on, just release like a second disc of like bonus tracks and get it all at the same time and have it as one album. Because
Yeah.
now it gets messy when it's like, oh, we have the original album we released and we have the deluxe edition,
Yeah.
then we have like a live version, and it just gets like all over the place. And it's really frustrating. Like on Spotify, like you might end up clicking the wrong one. Not that it's like a big deal, but like just get it all at once. There's no need for deluxe albums unless it's like a big anniversary, like what Linkin Park's doing. Obviously, like they're not a band anymore, but like a 20th anniversary, 10th anniversary, I get it. But like a year later, like I thought Silverstein was teasing a new album, and
Yeah,
I was
me
a little
too.
disappointed to know that it's just the deluxe edition of
Yeah.
Misery Made Me.
That I was with you because they were like really teasing it. I think you gotta find a balance here. You can't go that hard for a deluxe,
No,
but
great song. Don't get me wrong. I really liked Poison Pill, but
yeah. And they must really like it because they're also doing an acoustic version of the same song on the deluxe album, which is kind of interesting.
I'm not sure why they left it off, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe our band's making music with vinyl in mind again, and they want to make sure it's kept to one.
Maybe. I
Could
don't
be.
know.
I mean, they're all releasing vinyl, and if you can put your whole album on vinyl except for one track, then odds are you're probably gonna just trim it
That's fair.
and do a
Okay, I didn't think
deluxe
about that.
a year later. Yeah, I don't know. I'm
Or just
excited
do
to
an
hear the
EP. Do an
excited to
EP
hear
instead
the
of deluxe.
songs. Yeah. I was talking about that with someone last week, is how we don't get like bonus tracks anymore. like the way I guess you do, but not or not bonus, hidden tracks. You know how like a song used to end and like 10 minutes would go by and then like what went wrong would come on or like
You know,
whatever. You don't really get that anymore with streaming.
'cause it skips
Also,
right to the track.
yeah, because it would I mean, it would ruin a song for a playlist if there
Yeah.
was just 10 minutes of silence, but there's something I kind of miss.
Like AFI had one right on Sing the Sorrow. Didn't they have a hidden track at the end?
Yeah, yeah, it went for like 6 or 7 minutes and then I forget what it was, but even though I just listened to the album a bunch. Uh did you hear I mean I know you heard it, but I'm just gonna intro it this way anyway. Did you hear T-Pain singing War Pigs?
Yes. And I was completely blown away.
Wow. Dude, wow. I want to hear like Ozzy's thoughts on it because he nailed it. It's so good.
Like I had a coworker at my previous or 2 jobs ago now, but he was like, I guess like when the Masked Singer first came out, and I guess T Pain won
Yeah,
the first one. He was like telling me, he's like, T Pain is like low key like a really great singer, and you wouldn't expect it because like I guess obviously he has that costume on for the
yeah,
show. It's like no one knew who it was until the end,
yep.
but like he is very talented, and I
Dude,
don't think I realized that.
he gets a really bad rep. There was some show on Netflix that would like break down like eras of music or like times in music, and one was like the auto tune episode, and it was pretty much all about him. And he heard like I want to say it was like a Cher song that kind of spurred it, unless that was later and it was a different song, whatever. He heard this effect and he thought it sounded so cool and this and that. And he spent like 5 years trying to find that effect. He would buy like go through libraries, he would scroll through countless files, different plugins. He devoted like 5 years to finding that effect. And he finally found it, thought it was like the coolest shit. And then within like 6 months, like Usher comes out saying T-Pain has ruined music. Like he went into like depression because of this. Like people hated him. He's like, I love music. Like I didn't want to ruin music. It was a cool effect. Like
I gotta
I
watch this.
was,
It's on
yeah,
Netflix.
yeah. It was one of those things, you know, Netflix always does like so many episodes of stuff and it gets watered down. But whatever this one episode was really cool. I'll try and find it because it was like a year or two ago, I think. But so interesting. And like I really felt for the guy because one, he's got actual singing chops, which is even
Oh
cooler.
yeah,
And two, like it was like finding a new instrument to him. It wasn't about like cheating or like auto correcting your pitch. He just thought it was cool. And then everyone that he loved and respected told him that he ruined music. Like that sucks. That sucks. But I'm glad he's seems to be doing good now. And like I didn't listen to this whole album. I just listened to War Pigs, which is they're like playing it on Octane and stuff. It's pretty awesome.
that is awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole I did listen to the whole thing because it was only like a half hour, and like there's like some like R&B which like is like hit or miss for me, but like he's still like you can tell what a phenomenal singer he is, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping like now he's getting like this late career revival, and he's gonna finally get like the credit he deserves, which would be nice. Like kind of like a nice happy ending after what obviously he went
Yeah.
through like with auto
Yeah.
tune.
Yeah. Poor guy. But yeah, War Pigs, T-Pain, definitely check it out if you haven't. I think that's gonna do it for this week. Uh, what's what's going on next week?
So I know we got New Boy Genius, which I'm very excited for because I love the three of them:
Who's in it again?
Lucy Dacus, Phoebe Bridgers, and Julian Baker.
Cool. Um, yeah, I'm not sure what else is coming out, if anything, but
I had something else written down, but I'm blanking right now. But we'll obviously talk about it on the next episode.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure we'll find it. And we got some more fun interviews coming up. Summer's right around the corner. Shows are right around the corner. Get
Hopefully,
excited. Yes.
right now
All
it's
right.
just fish for me. Well, I mean, well, screaming females, but
Yeah. I really hope you come. That'll be fun to have like a nice group of four.
yeah, it will
So
be.
yeah. All right. That's gonna do it. Another one in the books. We love you all. Thanks again, Jarrett, for coming on. And yeah, see you next week.
David Bowie!